The red state proposals for AI in general have a lighter touch than the blue states, but everyone just seems to be motivated by the imperative to do something on AI, even though no one's really sure what that something should be. The only way that I see for model developers to comply with this law is to build in a new DEI layer into the models to basically somehow prevent models from giving outputs that might have a disparate impact on protected groups. So we're back to woke AI again.
White House AI czar David Sachs is warning artificial intelligence laws in blue states could inject progressive ideology into the rapidly evolving technology. A handful of states have signed AI bills into law this year, but Sachs says that new regulations in California and Colorado are especially concerning. And what I see happening here with AI is just a part of another disturbing trend that we're seeing in blue states, what I like to call these blue fiefdoms, whether it's policing, whether it's immigration, where they have sanctuary cities, whether it's education, where they just want to rely on the unions and poison our kids, whether it's energy policy. President Trump is doing all these things to bring costs down, but blue states aren't because they're doubling down on the green stuff. Yeah. I see this just as another, I don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to enact laws and we're going to do it our way. But the more this happens, Brianna, you create a polarization between states, and people are really going to have to make some serious choices about whether they want to live in these fiefdoms or they want to move somewhere else.
Yeah, the control over AI is not merely a technological problem. It is whoever controls AI controls the narrative, and they control what the truth is. And Colorado has that, algorithmic discrimination, where basically if there are disparate outcomes, they will look at these AI companies, even if they use neutral data. That becomes a problem because what they're trying to do, to your point, Jackie, is control what the narrative is for the rest of the country. And using AI, which has been extremely deceptive, is only going to get worse. It's going to get more sophisticated. That being said, we should also foster an environment where AI is able to be used. So it's going to be a tight balancing act. And I think this should be something that Congress works on rather than individual states, because we need some framework.
And this is something that we sort of got away from talking about. We were talking about it with the AI on the rise, Brian, and how some of the big tech players have the power to be able to do some of these things. The president has tried to reverse that. It seems like some of these CEOs have jumped on board with him now because it's in their interest to do so. But it does remind you of the power of AI, which is at the end of the day, yes, it's a chatbot, yes, it's ChatGPT, but somebody's programming it, and that person wields a lot of power.
They do, which is why I like a lot of competition. I like algorithms, I like AI products where you can say, I feel like I'm getting biased results from this one doesn't seem to give me that. But if all these states get into this algorithmic discrimination game and they start putting these blanket regulations on it, then I think you actually lose the competition. You end up with the one or two preferred guys in the state with the political connections, and they become the dominant one, and they've got to make sure that they don't create any disparate impacts, right? So we lose this whole idea of justice in the process. Forget about the outcome. Make sure the process is just. That's how America works. The left they define justice as equal outcomes, right? That's their whole equity thing. So they want equity in AI models, which I think David Sachs is right. It means all these guys are going to build DEI into this thing.
So Sachs called the blue state approach regulatory overreach on steroids, saying it forces companies to navigate 50 different state regimes. It's worse than the EU, Dagan.
They will just bypass the states. If you make it that difficult for a tech company to operate and put out, say, a new large language model, they will just wall it off from Colorado. So enjoy your Luddite existence. I hope that's actually what happens. However, a lot of these, and I laugh, but a lot of these tech companies are so progressive just innately that they do this on their own. And I point back to Google. And Google is not leading the way in artificial intelligence at all. Like, they do not know what to do with themselves because they had the greatest search and they basically crapified it, trying to make revenue from the ads, and now it's just a bunch of garbage. But remember when the Gemini chatbot came out and it had the image tool?
Oh, yeah.
And you could create images, and you had
presidents.
Yes, the presidents were Asian. It was like please create the founding fathers, and they seem to be from Southeast Asia, and it was a coat of many colors, so to speak. And every image generated was just worse than the last, and they had to essentially shut it down, or they just paused it. That was happening on purpose. There was a code insert into Gemini that told the chatbot every image should be diverse. So Google and its programmers had done that intentionally because, again, diversity, equity, and inclusion must be forced on the American people. And it was a laugh riot, but that's what happened.
But it's not just Google, the woke folks at Google. Even Elon Musk Grok is been accused of doing the same sort of thing because you go into the sources once they answer your question and you think it's too woke, you go into the sources. They're getting their source information from NPR, from the New York Times, et cetera. Of course they get garbage in, garbage out. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
It's only as good as it's only as good, these large language models, as what they're fed with.
Yeah, but the point is, it happens not just at the usual woke crowd at Google. It's even happening with Elon Musk's group. I'm going to quote something from somebody that I usually never agree with anything on, who said that it has become algorithmically polarized.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I'm like,
I know you're quoting.
And that has happened in progressive content and algorithms as well.
Yeah.
And that is AOC.
Yeah. Yes.
AOC, I agree with her on this instance. The question is how to fix it.
Right.
Can I add one thing to that? That was something that started happening well before artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
That social media silos people off into groups, and you were walled off from people who have other viewpoints. And it has actually made our polarization much worse.
Yes.
And it's not getting better. It's only getting worse.
I think it became particularly pronounced and obvious during the 2020 election is when people started waking up to the power that social media was having, the influence that it was having.